The table grew longer, the kitchen more crowded, the stories more numerous. Peggy didn't know what the future held, how long she would be able to keep doing this. But she knew that she would continue, as long as she was able, as long as there were people who needed a place to belong, a place to heal, a place to remember. The final scene. It's a Wednesday morning. The sun is streaming through the kitchen window, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. The smell of bacon and coffee fills the room. The house is buzzing with activity, filled with the sounds of laughter, chatter, and the clatter of cutlery. Peggy stands at the stove, flipping pancakes, her face lined with wrinkles, her eyes filled with a quiet joy. She looks out the window, at the children playing in the yard, their faces bright with the promise of a new day. A smile touches her lips. Another Wednesday, another beginning. Grandma Peggy was used to cooking big breakfasts, but after tragedy struck, she assumed those days were over. Then, something extraordinary happened. They started showing up. The old house creaked, a familiar sound that usually blended into the symphony of a Wednesday morning. But this Wednesday was different. Peggy Winkowski, 66, stood alone in her kitchen, the silence pressing in on her. No clatter of teenagers, no boisterous laughter, no shouts for more waffles, Grandma Peggy. Just the tick-tock of the old clock on the wall, each tick a painful reminder of what was missing. She ran a hand over the smooth, worn surface of the long wooden table. It had seen better days, scarred with the marks of countless breakfasts, spilled juice, and hurried homework sessions. Around it, mismatched chairs stood like silent sentinels, each holding the ghost of a memory. Her gaze settled on one chair in particular, the one nearest the window, where the morning sun always seemed to land first. Sam's chair. Sam, her grandson, the boy who had filled this house with so much life, so much joy, was gone. A wave of grief, raw and familiar, washed over her. She closed her eyes, remembering the Wednesdays of the past. The smell of coffee brewing, bacon sizzling, the sweet aroma of maple syrup clinging to the air. The chaotic energy of 20, sometimes 30, high schoolers crammed into her tiny house, all eager for a taste of Grandma Peggy's legendary breakfast. She opened her eyes, focusing on the task at hand, preparing breakfast. Even though no one was coming. Not today. The habit was too ingrained, the muscle memory too strong. She began cracking eggs, the sharp tap-tap-tap against the ceramic bowl echoing in the stillness. It felt wrong. It felt empty. The memory flickered, vivid and bright, transporting her back to a time before the silence. A Friday night, a few months before everything changed. Sam, surrounded by his closest friends at the local diner, a plate of half-eaten fries in front of him. "This is okay," Sam had said, his voice laced with that characteristic teenage blend of sarcasm and affection. "But, my grandma could cook better than this blindfolded." His friends, a motley crew of athletes, artists, and academics, had erupted in laughter. They knew Sam's grandma. She was a legend, a purveyor of comfort food, a dispenser of wisdom, often disguised as gentle teasing, and the unofficial den mother of their entire social circle. "Oh, come on, Sam," Emily, his best friend since kindergarten, had teased. "Your grandma's cooking is good, but diner food is diner food. It's a tradition." Tradition? Sam had scoffed, playfully. "My grandma's breakfasts are a revolution." And that's how it had started. A casual boast, a playful challenge, a way to get his friends together outside of school. Sam had declared the following Wednesday Grandma Peggy's Breakfast Club, and, surprisingly, everyone had shown up. Sam was like that. He had a way of bringing people together, of making everyone feel included, of turning even the most mundane event into something special. He was a magnet, drawing people in with his easy smile, his genuine kindness, and his infectious enthusiasm. Peggy had been surprised, to say the least, when she opened her door that first Wednesday morning to find a dozen teenagers standing on her porch. She had known Sam was popular, but she hadn't realized the extent of his influence. "Sam said you were making breakfast?" One of the boys, a lanky football player named Mike, had asked tentatively. Peggy had looked at Sam, who was grinning from ear to ear, a mischievous glint in his eyes. She had sighed, a mixture of exasperation and amusement, and ushered them inside. The kitchen, normally her quiet sanctuary, had transformed into a buzzing hive of activity. She had scrambled dozens of eggs, fried pounds of bacon, flipped stacks of waffles, and sliced mountains of fresh fruit. The table, normally set for two, had groaned under the weight of plates, bowls, and mugs. The air had filled with the sounds of laughter, chatter, and the clatter of cutlery. Peggy had watched, a warm feeling spreading through her chest, as Sam and his friends devoured her cooking, their faces lit up with happiness. It was chaotic, it was messy, it was perfect. That first breakfast had been intended as a one-off, a fun way to start the day. But it quickly became a tradition. Every Wednesday, rain or shine, Peggy's house filled with hungry teenagers. The numbers swelled. Friends brought friends, siblings tagged along. Even a few curious parents peeked in from time to time. Peggy became Grandma Peggy to the entire group. They confided in her, shared their triumphs and their heartbreaks, sought her advice on everything from college applications to relationship woes. She listened patiently, offered words of encouragement, and always had a plate of warm food waiting for them. The breakfasts weren't just about the food, though. They were about connection, about community, about creating a space where everyone felt welcome, safe, and loved. They were about Sam's spirit, his ability to bring people together, his unwavering belief in the power of friendship. And Peggy, without even realizing it, had become the keeper of that spirit. It was a Tuesday, much like any other Tuesday. Sam woke up late, as usual, scrambling to get ready for school. He grabbed a piece of toast, kissed Peggy on the cheek, and dashed out the door, shouting a hurried, "Love you, Grandma! See you tomorrow." He spent the day in classes, joking with his friends, flirting with Emily. They had finally admitted their feelings for each other, and practicing for the upcoming soccer game. He was the team captain, a natural leader, respected and admired by his peers. There were small, almost imperceptible hints of what was to come. A fleeting headache that he dismissed as stress. A momentary dizziness that he attributed to lack of sleep. A strange, unsettling feeling that he couldn't quite shake. A premonition that he brushed aside as teenage angst. He was young, healthy, invincible. Or so he thought. He talked about the future, about going to college, about traveling the world, about making a difference. He had so many plans, so many dreams, so much life ahead of him. He had no idea that his time was running out. The phone rang late that evening. Peggy was in the kitchen, cleaning up after dinner, humming a familiar tune. She answered, expecting it to be Sam, calling to say he was staying late at a friend's house. The voice on the other end was not Sam's. It was a police officer, his tone grave and official. Peggy's hand trembled as she listened, her heart pounding in her chest. There had been an accident. A car crash. Sam was gone. The words seemed to hang in the air, unreal, impossible. Peggy's knees buckled, and she sank to the floor, the phone slipping from her grasp. The world around her blurred, the sounds of the kitchen fading into a distant hum. She didn't scream, didn't cry out, just a silent, overwhelming wave of grief that threatened to swallow her whole. Neighbors rushed in, alerted by the sound of the dropped phone. Friends and family arrived, their faces etched with shock and disbelief. The house, usually filled with warmth and laughter, was now shrouded in a heavy blanket of sorrow. The days that followed were a blur. The funeral, the condolences, the endless stream of visitors offering their sympathy. Peggy moved through it all like a ghost, numb and detached. She couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't think. The pain was too raw, too overwhelming. Everywhere she looked, she saw reminders of Sam. His clothes in his closet, his books on his shelf, his soccer cleats by the door. And then there was the kitchen, the heart of their home, the place where they had shared so many happy memories. The empty chair at the table was a constant, agonizing reminder of her loss. She would sit there, staring at the chair, tears streaming down her face. She would remember his smile, his laughter, his endless stories. She would remember the way he would reach across the table to steal a piece of bacon from her plate, his eyes twinkling with mischief. She would remember the way he would always say, "Love you, Grandma," before leaving the house. The first Wednesday after Sam's death arrived, a gray and gloomy day that mirrored Peggy's mood. She had no intention of making breakfast. What was the point? The thought of facing that empty table, of cooking for no one, was unbearable. But as the morning wore on, a strange feeling began to stir within her. A sense of duty, of obligation, of something else. She couldn't quite name it. She remembered Sam's words, his playful boast about her cooking. She remembered the joy on his friends' faces, the warmth and laughter that had filled her kitchen every Wednesday morning. Almost against her will, she found herself pulling out the ingredients. Eggs, bacon, flour, milk. She started to cook, her movements slow and deliberate, her heart heavy with grief. A few of Sam's closest friends, Emily among them, showed up at her door. They didn't say much, just offered their condolences, their eyes filled with tears. They sat at the table, the empty chair a stark reminder of their loss. Peggy served them breakfast, the food tasting like ashes in her mouth. They ate in silence, the only sound the gentle clinking of forks against plates. It was the saddest breakfast they had ever shared, but it was also a beginning of a new chapter, a chapter without Sam, but also a chapter filled with his memory, his spirit, his legacy. The following Wednesday, more people came. Not just Sam's closest friends, but others from his wider circle. Classmates, teammates, even some of the teachers from the high school. They came quietly, respectfully, their faces etched with a mixture of grief and a desire to offer support. Peggy was surprised. She hadn't expected so many people. She had barely enough food to go around. But somehow, she managed. She made more eggs, more bacon, more waffles. She borrowed chairs from her neighbors. She squeezed everyone in, the kitchen overflowing with bodies and with a shared sense of loss and remembrance. The atmosphere was different this time. There were still tears, but there were also smiles, tentative at first, then growing stronger. People started to share stories about Sam, funny anecdotes, touching memories. The empty chair remained, a poignant reminder of his absence, but it no longer felt quite so empty. It felt like a space held open for his memory, for his spirit. Peggy realized that the Wednesday breakfast had become something more than just a meal. It had become a ritual, a gathering, a way for everyone to connect, to grieve, and to heal. It had become Sam's legacy. Word spread. The story of Grandma Peggy's Wednesday Breakfast Club, of the grieving grandmother who continued to cook for her grandson's friends, began to circulate throughout the small town. It started with whispers, then spread to local Facebook groups, then to the local newspaper. People were touched by Peggy's resilience, by her unwavering love for Sam, by her generosity in the face of such profound loss. They wanted to help. They started showing up on Wednesday mornings with contributions. Bags of groceries, boxes of fruit, homemade muffins, jugs of orange juice. Local businesses got involved. The bakery down the street donated bread and pastries. The grocery store offered a discount on supplies. The hardware store donated a new, larger table to accommodate the growing number of guests. Peggy was overwhelmed by the outpouring of support. She had never asked for anything, had never expected anything. She had simply wanted to keep Sam's memory alive, to offer a small measure of comfort to his friends. But the community had rallied around her, transforming her personal act of remembrance into a collective expression of love and solidarity. The breakfast became a tapestry of stories, woven together by shared memories of Sam. Each Wednesday, new faces appeared, each with their own connection to the boy who was gone but not forgotten. There was Sarah, Sam's best friend, who always brought his worn-out journal, filled with his doodles, his thoughts, his dreams. She would read passages aloud, her voice trembling with emotion, sharing glimpses of Sam's inner world with the group. There was Mike, the shy, awkward boy who had always felt like an outsider. He had found a sense of belonging at Peggy's table, a place where he could be himself, without judgment. He blossomed under Peggy's gentle encouragement, discovering a confidence he never knew he possessed. There was Mrs. Davis, Sam's English teacher, who remembered him as a bright, inquisitive student, always eager to learn, always challenging her with his insightful questions. She shared stories of his classroom antics, his witty essays, his unwavering passion for literature. And there was Mr. Johnson, Peggy's elderly neighbor, a widower who had lived alone for years, his days filled with a quiet loneliness. He started coming to the breakfasts, offering to help Peggy with the cooking and the cleaning. He found a renewed sense of purpose, a connection to the community he had long felt isolated from. The stories flowed, laughter mingling with tears. The breakfasts became a space for healing, for sharing grief, for celebrating life, even in the face of death. Peggy, at the center of it all, became a beacon of hope, a symbol of resilience, a testament to the enduring power of love. It wasn't always easy. There were challenges along the way. The sheer number of people attending the breakfasts put a strain on Peggy's resources. She was living on a fixed income, and the cost of feeding so many mouths was significant. There were times when her health faltered. The grief, the exhaustion, the constant activity took their toll. She would wake up some Wednesdays feeling too weak, too tired, to face the day. She would think about giving up, about closing the door, about retreating into her sorrow. And there were the naysayers, the few who didn't understand, who questioned the purpose of the breakfasts, who whispered about the expense, the inconvenience, the perceived futility of it all. But Peggy persevered. She was driven by her love for Sam, by her commitment to his friends, by the overwhelming support of the community. The donations of food and money helped alleviate the financial burden. Friends and neighbors stepped in to assist with the cooking and cleaning, easing her physical strain. And the outpouring of love and gratitude from those who attended the breakfasts drowned out the voices of doubt. She learned to accept help, to lean on others, to recognize that she didn't have to do it all alone. She learned that vulnerability was not weakness, that asking for support was a sign of strength. She learned that the power of community could overcome even the greatest challenges. One Wednesday, a reporter from the local newspaper showed up, unannounced. She had heard about the breakfasts, about the grieving grandmother and the community that had rallied around her. She wanted to write a story, to share this remarkable tale of love and loss with the wider world. The article was published the following week, and it quickly went viral. It was shared on social media, picked up by national news outlets, and translated into multiple languages. Suddenly, Grandma Peggy's Wednesday Breakfast Club was no longer a local secret. It was a global phenomenon. The response was overwhelming. Emails, letters, and phone calls poured in from all over the world. People were touched by Peggy's story, inspired by her resilience, and moved by the power of community. And then, the unexpected guests started to arrive. A famous chef, inspired by Peggy's cooking, showed up one Wednesday, offering to help prepare the meal. A well-known singer, touched by the story, performed an impromptu concert in Peggy's living room. A professional athlete, remembering his own experiences with loss, shared words of encouragement with the teenagers. A person came a very long way, having only read the story online, seeking the comfort and community they had read about. Peggy was amazed, humbled, and a little bit overwhelmed by all the attention. She had never sought fame or recognition. She had simply wanted to honor Sam's memory, to provide a space for healing and connection. But she welcomed the unexpected guests with open arms, her heart filled with gratitude and a quiet sense of wonder. As the weeks turned into months, and the months into years, Peggy found herself reflecting on the meaning of the Wednesday breakfasts. They had started as a simple act of remembrance, a way to keep Sam's spirit alive. But they had become so much more. They were a testament to the power of human connection, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there is always hope, always love, always a reason to keep going. They were a living embodiment of Sam's legacy, his ability to bring people together, his unwavering belief in the goodness of humanity. They were a place where people could share their stories, their struggles, their triumphs. A place where they could find comfort, support, and a sense of belonging. A place where they could heal, grow, and learn to live with loss, without letting it define them. Peggy realized that the breakfasts weren't just about Sam anymore. They were about everyone who came, everyone who shared, everyone who found solace and strength in that simple act of breaking bread together. They were about the enduring power of community, the transformative potential of kindness, and the unwavering belief in the possibility of healing. The Wednesday breakfast continued,